Hey, folks. So, if you're just beginning on this narrative project, we're going to work on some narrative writing skills over the course of this. Um, Specifically, remembering our goal is to write in narratives in which we use effective techniques and choose thoughtful details to include within this narrative to really build sort of an overall story, something that really works together. Um, so, what I'm going to have us do right now is brainstorm a little bit. I want you to have a general idea of what you're going to write about. It doesn't have to be your final version yet, but just so we can practice some of these skills that we're going to be working on. So I want you to press pause on this video and just develop a list of 4 to 5 memorable events in your life. Something, in your past that you could write about that might be fun to reflect on, or something that you thought was meaningful. I'll press pause. All right, got your list? All right, we're going to make a couple more lists, so be ready to press pause again. Now, I want you to pick one of those, just as a brainstorming activity. Pick one of those and try to list as many sensory items as you can remember. Go ahead and press pause and think for like 2 minutes and try to come up with at least one or two for each of the senses. So sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. And then lastly, I want you to just jot down a couple of emotions, at least 3, but you can go for more. A couple of emotions or feelings that you have associated with that event in your life. Cool. Got those. I'll share with you mine. Here's what I would come up with or brainstorm maybe, is here's my list of events. Fishing, a big event in my life was my choice to move back to Montana. Obviously, the birth of my children was important. It wasn't a specific event, but it's definitely something that's been important to me. I kind of have a struggle with anxiety and perfectionism. I, I sold fireworks for a while, so that was just an interesting point in my life. I love hiking, and I went to Iceland with my wife. I thought that was a really important trip. So I need to look at one of those, and I'm actually going to choose this one, my choice to move back to Montana, because I want to kind of highlight, here's how I would do something like this, where this doesn't have a particular event associated with it, right? It doesn't have any seemingly sensory items that I would initially just grab onto, like fishing would or selling fireworks would, right? There's sights and smells and sounds that deal with fireworks, not so much with like a decision, right? So what I have to do is I have to put myself back in that situation, right? At the time, I was living in Seattle, so I need to think, okay, what story am I going to tell? Where am I going to tell this story that would have some connection to some sensory items? What was an important point in this pivotal decision to move back to Montana? And what I kind of came up with was, okay, I was in Seattle. Obviously, that has some senses, right? It's rainy. It was spring, just turning into summer. So in Seattle, that means it's still raining a lot. And the more I thought about it, the more like this idea came into mind, where it's like the true pivotal moment for me was after I started apartment hopping for a while, where it just means like I wasn't living in the same place for very long. I moved like 3 times in the course of a year, and then I'm realizing, dude, I'm just not finding what I'm looking for here in Seattle. And so I put myself in that mode of one of my apartments. So I've narrowed it down from this whole big choice down to one particular memory of being in this one small apartment by myself, and I didn't really like it. And I remember just eating boiled broccoli because I was like depressed. I don't know. It just comes to mind. So I started brainstorming any and every sense that I could, and also some of the emotions that I was feeling at the time: anxious, lonely, kind of bittersweet, because I was choosing to move on from the city that I had loved, but I wanted to go back to Montana, a place that I loved even more. And once you have your brainstorm list that might look something like this, we're going to start writing about this particular place or event that you witnessed or were a part of, and starting to connect some of these sensory items to some of these emotions without saying any of these emotions. That's going to be one of the rules, is you can't use any of these words that you listed for emotions. You have to kind of show me with your sensory items. I'll show you what I mean. What this is called connotation, where we really want to connect the sensations and the words we're using to describe something to an emotion or a feeling for the story. So, for example, if I'm writing from an angry emotion, I might say, the fresh pizza scorched the roof of my mouth, but I ate it anyway, ignoring the searing pain, right? That definitely, it doesn't quite get to anger yet, but it definitely means like, oh, so burning your mouth isn't the biggest thing on your mind right now. Something else is going on. Or sad. Maybe I'll start with the sensory idea that the dull whir of a fan echoed softly as the only sound in a room, right? Start to get the idea that this is a lonely story. The dull whir of a fan, that word dull is kind of associated with sadness, right? You get the idea. And so, lastly, here's an example. I wrote for about 6, 8 minutes here about me just reflecting on this apartment. And obviously, I don't know if this would make it into a final narrative, but it would definitely start to give me a feeling and a thought, and maybe even some ideas that I could use in my final narrative as I'm sort of establishing my exposition of here's where I am, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm feeling. And I'll let you guys read this. But again, I was just trying to focus on covering at least one of each of my five senses. So there's sight in there, there's smell in there, there's sound, there's taste, and there's touch a little bit. Cool. So this is what you guys are going to be working on and just practicing developing your sensory writing. Show me some of those senses. All right. Good luck, folks.